If you're a Shtisel fan, raise your hand if you're a Shtisel fan. All right, good. So you're probably familiar with the word Shkoyach. Even if you're not a Hebrew or a Yiddish speaker and you're following along with the subtitles, it's hard to miss the ubiquity with which Sholem Shtisel, the family's wizened, curmudgeonly patriarch, uses this term. He says Shkoyach when he wants to say congratulations or thank you or good job, and he'll say Shkoyach when he pretty much means the opposite of those things. Of course, the Yiddish Shkoyach derives from the Hebrew Yishar Koach, or Yashar Koach, which means may your strength be firm or fitting. Today I want to explore this phrase a bit because it says something about strength and also, I think, about what it is and what it's not. Of course, these days we say Yashar Koach to congratulate someone for having an aliyah to the Torah. The Sephardi custom is similar. They say Chazaku Baruch, strength and blessing. It's as if climbing the steps to this bima is like ascending Mount Sinai, and the reward for performing the rite is an acknowledgement of one's physical strength. This certainly feels accurate when one has the honor of Hagbah, lifting and displaying the Sefer Torah for all to see. Anyone who has performed this particular rite knows that it takes agility and balance and strength. But the Torah isn't read or blessed in that position. To read the Torah, we lay it down on a table. The shulchan here to my left. Does that take strength? Perhaps it once did. There's some speculation that the Torah was meant to be read upright and so had to be held vertically. This would certainly take physical strength. Think about the Sephardi rite. If you've seen a Sephardi scroll read, they do read the Torah vertically. This is why they've developed the tradition of constructing cases out of silver or out of wood, as with our beautiful centerpiece, the Torah that was commissioned for the Ark of our Moorish sanctuary here 100 years ago. This allows for the klaf, the parchment of the scroll, to remain upright. Ashkenazi Jews, though, read the Torah flat, or preferably on a bit of an angle. Why is this? Possibly so you can see it a little better, but also possibly it's related to why we hang a mezuzah on an angle. Now, there's a famous debate between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam about how to hang a mezuzah. Rashi says it should be upright. This position is supported by the Rambam, Maimonides, and gets codified in the Shulchan Aruch, the great 16th century code of Jewish law, which provides guidance for Sephardi or Mizrahi practice. Indeed, if you walk around old Jewish neighborhoods in Spain or contemporary Sephardic neighborhoods, you'll find evidence of vertical mezuzot. In the case of ancient Spain, they're actually sometimes etched into the stone in the door frames. But in a reminder that it's okay to disagree with your grandparents, especially if you do it respectfully, Rabbeinu Tam, Rashi's grandson, says the proper way to affix a mezuzah is horizontally, not vertically. And so an elegant compromise is suggested by Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the Ramah, who writes a gloss on the Shulchan Aruch, and therefore the Ashkenazi practice follows his opinion to hang the mezuzah not vertically and not horizontally, but on an angle going into the room, which is exactly what we'll do tomorrow with 6 mezuzot, as we affix the first group of sponsored mezuzot for our Coming Home project here at Beth Am, leading up to hanging that final mezuzah of at least the historic building on the doors on Utah Place after Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. Here's the interesting thing, though. There's a deep connection between mezuzot and Torah scrolls. Both, like tefillin as well, include a klaf, a scroll made of animal skin on which the sacred Hebrew words are written. Without that klaf, the ritual item isn't kosher, and the text can't be printed or even handwritten by just anyone. Do you know whose job it is to write those scrolls? So they're called a sofer, or a soferet, but there's actually a bit more to the term. The full title is a sofer stam, Why STAM? Because STAM is an acronym for Sefer Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzah. By the way, those things are mentioned in this week's parasha. So I mentioned the second paragraph of Shema before, but we have here the specific mention of the mezuzah and the tefillin, as we understand it, come from that paragraph and also from the first paragraph of Shema. So you heard chanted beautifully by Bonnie earlier today. ושמתם את דבריי אלה על לבבכם ועל נפשכם וקשרתם אותם לאות על ידכם והיו לטוטפות בין עיניכם. You should place them as a sign upon your arm or your hand, and they should be a symbol before your eyes. And then later it says וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, and you should write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. So it appears, going back to the Sephardi versus Ashkenazi principle, that the Sephardi line of thinking is that a Torah, like a mezuzah, should be upright, and the Ashkenazi line of thinking is that a Torah, like a mezuzah, should be read flat or slightly angled, which is exactly what we do, isn't it? But what about this question of strength, about chizuk, or about koach and yasher koach? If saying Yasher Koach in Ashkenazi context or Chazak u'Baruch in Sephardi context isn't about physical strength required to carry or manipulate the Torah, why do we say these things? And complicating the matter even further is that this seems to also come from this week's parasha, but not necessarily from Mikra, from the text itself, but from a midrashic tradition, and in a bit of a convoluted way. It's related to the precursor of the Sefer Torah, the Shnei Luchot Habrit, the two tablets on which the Ten Commandments were inscribed. But the phrase meaning, may your strength be firm, isn't uttered by shulgoers celebrating a job well done in the Parsha. Yasher Koach, according to the Midrash, is what God says to Moshe right after he does what? Destroys the tablets. So the Talmud in Masechet Shabbat tells us that Moses went a little rogue in a few instances and did things that God had not expressly endorsed. One of these was breaking the tablets of the law. And here's the text. From where do we derive that the Kadosh Baruch Hu agreed with his, that's Moshe's reasoning? As it is stated, the first tablets which you broke, asher shibarta. And Reish Lakish said, Yishar kochacha sheshibarta. Yasher koach. Your strength is true because you broke the tablets. Now, first of all, it's fascinating that Reish Lakish, of all people, is the one to say this, because Reish Lakish, perhaps more than any other sage, is associated with physical strength. There's a wonderful and evocative story elsewhere in the Talmud in which Reish Lakish sees Rabbi Yochanan, who is referred to as beautiful, swimming in the Jordan River, and he jumps in after him. Rabbi Yochanan says, your strength for Torah, and Reish Lakish says, your beauty for women. Now, there's a lot that's interesting about this story, and some of you have heard me teach it before, but the point that I wish to make here is that Reish Lakish is not a rabbi, at least not yet. Reish Lakish is a bandit. Rabbi Yochanan convinces him to transfer his strength for criminality to education and later to mastery as a sage. He changes his focus from physical strength to mental acuity. Moshe, in smashing the tablets, does demonstrate physical strength, to be sure, but according to the sages, he's making a mental choice as well. Why really does Moshe smash the tablets? Is it just rage at seeing what's going on below the mountain? He knew that they were worshiping an idol long before he got down from Har Sinai. God told him while he was up on the mountain. Rashi brings the midrash that I mentioned from the Talmud, and significantly he does so not here in our Parsha, but at the very end of Deuteronomy. That's right, the midrash marks Rashi's very last comment on the entire Torah. The verse, Ulechol hayad hachazaka, and for the great strength and awesome power that Moses displayed before Israel, that is the last verse of the entire Torah scroll, strength and power. And here's what Rashi says. This refers to the fact that his heart inspired him to shatter the tablets before their eyes. As it is said, and I broke them before your eyes. Those words also come from our Parsha in chapter 9. And the opinion of the Holy One regarding this action agreed with Moses' opinion, as it is stated that God said of the tablets, Asher Shibarta, which you have broken. May your strength be fitting, Ishar, because you have broken them. So Rashi notices what Reish Lakish also noticed many generations earlier. The word Asher sounds a bit like Ishar. That you broke becomes because you broke. Shkoyach, Shulam Stissel might say. Great work, nice job. And if you think about it, Moshe's actions could be interpreted one of two ways. Either Moshe breaks the tablets because the people have violated the contract. They've rendered it null and void. So Moshe essentially tears up the document. You don't deserve the Torah, which prohibits idolatry and celebrates our relationship with one God, Hashem. Or another way to read it is Moshe tears up the document in order to protect the people, because they didn't yet have the Torah, which prohibits idolatry. Oops, Moses could be saying, just kidding. Spare them, God, because they didn't get a chance yet to read the fine print. Either way, Rashi's comment and Reish Lakish's midrash agreed of Asher Shibarta points to a problematizing of strength. Strength, true strength, isn't about how much we can bench press. It's not even about how many columns we can display during Hagbah, though Evan did a spectacular job. Koach, or chizuk, true strength, is to be found in the words of Torah, the wisdom of our tradition, not the book, but the text. So permit me to end with another rabbinic meditation on strength that also links directly with Torah and with mezuzah and with tefillin. Why are these holy objects written, asks this text, with a kulmus, that is, a quill fashioned from a reed. Tanu Rabbanan, Leolam yehe adam rach kekaneh ve'al yehe kashe ke'erez. Our sages taught one should strive to be flexible like a reed and not hard like a cedar. Cedar trees are strong to be sure. They can withstand great winds, but the strongest wind can still uproot a cedar due to its rigidity. The reed, soft and pliable, can bend with the fiercest of winds. What is strength? Why does the reed merit to write a Torah scroll? Because despite even Moses' best attempt, Torah cannot really be broken. Maybe Moshe shatters the tablets, as it says before our eyes, so that we might witness them reconstituted, so that we don't confuse the words on the page with the stone or the parchment on which they're written. When we're called to the Torah, therefore, and we're told Yasher Koach, it's because we've ascended the mountain in our minds and carried the words of Torah off, hopefully, in our hearts. Shabbat Shalom.